above water.
Saints Row is a game I hold very near and dear to my heart. In a generation where white kids with Xboxes wanted to roleplay at being a gangster, this game was there to feed the masses, and you better believe that I showed up with a big appetite. And while it's generally agreed that the sequel is infinitely more refined, it tends to overshadow a lot of the things the first game did just as well. Things like a more grounded tone, the way it balances sincerity and humor.
Put these on.
I'm yellow enough as it is, Dex.
And the fact that it was able to stand out at all when everybody agreed that this was the real place to go for your white boy hood fantasies. Now this game isn't without its faults, and trust me, we'll get into some of them later. But for now, I think it's high time we give one of gaming's best crime simulators some praise, and where better to start than on the streets of Stilwater. But before we dive into any of that, we gotta create our character first. In a unique attempt at versatility, Saints Row lets you create whatever type of monstrosity you want. No option to be a female though, so boys night, boys night! Truth be told, it's a pretty limited character creator and you can't get too crazy with it, so I gave up on trying to create me and ended up making the frontman of a 70s funk band instead.
I can't believe my dad gave me shit for dating a black guy.
The game begins with an iconic cutscene showing the player getting caught in the crossfire between the game's rival gangs. Something I've always admired about Saints Row 1 is how the game sets up pretty much everything with just one small cutscene. In the span of a couple of minutes, you're shown just what type of city Stillwater is.
Hey baby, I can show you a good time.
All the gangs you're going to face off with in the game and how much they love each other. And you're introduced to the Saints, who subsequently save you after nearly dying in the shootout.
Wrong time, wrong place, dawg.
You okay, player?
You're then told by the Saints' leader, Julius, to come by the church if you want to start making a difference in this smelly, smelly town. And so you do, immediately noticing how diverse the Saints are as a gang. I mean, just look at how I'm respecting this woman, dude! This is where the game teaches you all of the core mechanics, like punching, shooting, and being a chubby chaser, and you help the Saints gain a foothold in their district again. You're then given a rousing speech by Julius where he tells the gang how he plans to take over the city. Each lieutenant will be assigned to a rival gang, and the player will aid in taking out each one. Dex is assigned to the Carnales, Lynn the Westside Rollerz, and Johnny Gat the Vice Kings. There's also Troy, who's just kind of there and bounces around between the three gangs. But I like him because he looks like Norman Jayden from Heavy Rain.
You're gonna tell me about the man with the blue car.
Go fuck yourself in the ass!
I'll go a little deeper into characters when I cover each gang in the story segment, but for now, all you need to know is this.
It's our time now. Let's get this shit started.
Once you've completed the prologue, the game fully lets you off the leash, and you can engage with the sandbox however you want. Do missions, drive cars, kill people. So I feel like this is a good time to talk about how this game actually feels to play. And I'm happy to report that it's fine. It's good. You know, it's nothing revolutionary, but it works. If anything, it can feel a bit clunky, but you forgive it because the moment-to-moment gameplay is functional and works fine. It's engaging enough to feel fun while you're playing, and not boring enough to the point where you feel like... Something that might turn off a few people is that this game has no dedicated aiming feature and relies completely on free aim instead. But believe me when I say it's not as bad as it sounds. Might feel a bit unnatural at first, but you get to grips with it pretty quickly. On top of that, you can sprint, which looks... yeah. Hijack cars, drive them around. It's got all the basic hallmarks of an open world sandbox crime sim, but it doesn't leave a lot to be desired or anything. It just comes in, does what it needs to do, and gets out. What really helps bolster the gameplay loop is in the weapon variety. Saints Row equips you with a solid set of tools early on, and the variety only gets broader the more you play, genuinely encouraging experimentation, so you're not locked into a correct way to play. You can be tactical, reckless, or just improvise and see what happens, which is a nice sense of freedom the game grants you. And if you're wondering why I have an infinity symbol next to my ammo counter, don't worry about it, dude, you asked too many questions. Something else that's pretty cool about this game is the customization. You can make your character look however you want, but the game rewards you for keeping in theme with the color of your gang, indicated here by this respect multiplier. So you're not punished for wanting to dress up like a freak if you want to, but it's a nice touch of world building that is incentivized for you to wear the Saints colors. Now with all that praise said, I do need to talk about something that reveals this game's age a bit: the save system and mission checkpoints. Saints Row comes from that beautiful age of gaming where developers assumed you had infinite time and no responsibilities, so it should come as no shock that Saints Row features no autosave whatsoever, and you've got to manually save your progress after every play session. Luckily you can manually save from the menu, so you don't have to run around to dedicated save points each time, but it can be a little bit frustrating after you've completed 2 main missions and 5 strongholds only to load up your game to discover you've got to do 2 hours of progress all over again because you didn't fucking manually save. On top of that, this game's mission checkpoints can be brutal. This isn't a problem that's prevalent throughout the entire game, but there's a few instances where you will die to absolute bullshit and have to replay the entire mission all over again. It wouldn't be so bad if the deaths were genuinely my fault, but when you're getting sniped off screen by a fucking fucking aimbot RPG, it can get a little grating after a while. So, you've got the weapons, the clothes, the women, but what good would it all be without a city to burn? Welcome to Stillwater, spelt with one L. Bitch. On a surface level, it looks like your typical open world city. 2 separate islands connected by a few bridges. Nothing special. But it's only when you go out into this world and start noticing the fine details that Stillwater becomes more than just a basic playground for the player. A lot of open world cities in games can suffer the fate of feeling very generic and repetitive in their design. But Stillwater couldn't be further from that fate. For what this city lacks in size, it makes up for in diversity. No 2 districts are the same. You have areas like the suburbs, downtown, industrial zones, more urban districts like Saints Row and Chinatown. There's a very clear class divide showing that the upper half of the map feels rich and clean, while the lower half is dirty, cramped, and visibly run down. It makes driving around Stillwater such a treat for the player, as you're never looking at the same set of buildings for more than like 5 minutes at a time. In addition to the visuals, Stillwater is also jam-packed with a heightened level of interactivity. There's so many little hidden details you can find by exploring the map, and you can clearly see the care taken by the developers to make sure exploring the city had a purpose and gave it character. Running low on health? Head over to the aptly named Freckle Bitch's fast food chain and get yourself a burger, you freak. See a distinctive phone number scribbled on a wall, give it a call, and bam, you've got a new friend. But out of all of the cool little details you can find in the world, my favorite has got to be this one. What, you don't see it? Zoom a bit closer. A little bit closer. There it is! The way the game best displays how insane this city and its inhabitants are is through radio commercials. I can't tell you how many times I'd just be driving around peacefully in Stillwater to then get blindsided by the most absurd, funny shit.
Hey, you fuckers! We're going out of business! Everything, and I mean everything, is at clearance prices! I'm Crazy Carl, and if you can find fine jewelry, watches, or collectibles for less, I'll bite the head off a monkey!
And while we're on the subject of the radio, I want to take a moment to spotlight this game's music. Because Volition wasn't exactly rolling in cash when they made Saints Row 1, they couldn't license a bunch of tracks from well-known artists. However, I think this kind of worked to their benefit, because some of the tracks you can find on the radio are really underrated. I should warn you though, if you're a K-Rhyme listener like me, be prepared to hear Aisha's bounce like my checks nearly every time you enter a vehicle. This was a song produced purely for this game and sung by a character from the story, and clearly whoever made it was proud of it because you hear it so goddamn frequently. In summary, Stillwater is small in terms of size but large in terms of personality. It's easily one of my favourite sandboxes in a video game, and if you give this game a shot, I know you'll come to love it just as much as I do. Now, before you can actually start taking on any of the gangs, you've got to build the reputation of the Saints. As Julius puts it,
You break it down, and it's all about respect.
respect can be indicated here on the screen. The more you have, the more missions you can do, and each mission costs you 1 respect. Now, granted, this is a pretty weird concept, and I don't think it will go over so well in a modern game, but I actually think it's pretty cool. It's a unique mechanic that actively encourages the player to go out and interact with the sandbox. So the question you must be asking now is, how do you get respect? Well, if you're from the UK, it's simple. You get it by doing this. But in Stillwater, you earn it by doing activities. There's 10 activity types in total dotted all over the map, and they can range from extreme fun to extreme shit. So I'll go through each one now to give you a sense of what they're all about and rank them all accordingly. Starting at the bottom of the barrel, we've got Hitman and Chop Shop. In a game where you commit crimes on a minute-by-minute basis, the only thing that should be considered criminal is these 2 god-awful activities. Hitman likes to trick you into thinking it's a cool idea by giving you a list of targets, each tied to a specific district, and you have to take them out with a specific weapon. It sounds easy, sounds fun, it's not, it's a lie. The target almost never spawns in the district the game tells you they're in, which means most of your time is spent aimlessly driving around in a district looking for a guy who simply does not exist in that area. And on the rare occasion you do find them, there's a good chance you don't have the correct weapon equipped because you were actively tracking a different target. Bruh. Which is the psychological equivalent of being told you can't enter a church unless you promise not to piss in the baptism water. And at that point, it's just no goddamn fun. The only real redeeming quality of this activity is the rewards you can get out of it. After completing each hit list, you gain access to buffed versions of existing weapons. And considering how many missions in this game involve dealing damage to vehicles, they can be pretty useful, but the real question is whether you're willing to endure hours of mental torture that it takes to get them. Chop Shop is the exact same idea, but for cars. You're given a list, you track them down, and listen guys, I'll be honest, I didn't even finish this one. If Hitman drains the fun out of Saints Row, Chop Shop just doubles down. These 2 are easily the worst activities in the game. Thankfully, everything after this point ranges from tolerable to genuinely great. Over in mid-tier, we have Racing, Hijacking, Escort, and Snatch. Let's start with Racing. A super simple yet super boring activity where the main goal is to be the best racist of them all. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about this activity beyond you get in a car and you race for first place. If you've played any racing game ever, you get the general idea. Cars drive fine in this game, so it works functionally. It just gets a little monotonous after a while unless you start creating your own fun. Like when I purposely missed this turn to absolutely blitz an old man with my car. Hijacking. Take everything I just said about racing, add shooting and robbery into the mix, and there you have the activity. Alright, it's a little more involved than that, but it doesn't change the fact that it gets pretty stale after doing the activity activity no more than like 3 times. The goal is to drive to the car you need to hijack, shoot the driver, steal the car, and try not to die on the way back. It ain't great, but it ain't bad either, which you should all be accustomed to at this point seeing as you watch my channel. My main takeaway from this activity is that I wish they called it Grand Theft Auto instead of hijacking, but we all know why they couldn't. Escort, however, I'd rank a little higher in mid-tier purely because what you're doing is more entertaining to me. Escort sees you become a chauffeur for VIP clients that want to get their freak on away from public view. The rules are as follows: pick up the client, drive them around, and avoid any media vans trying to expose them. It's a pretty easy concept, but the way the challenge increases at each level of this activity really keeps you on your toes, because shit gets a little crazy later on with the addition of multiple media vans. Alright guys, I'm sorry to do this, I know this breaks up the whole flow of the video, but I spent ages working on a really funny edit for this activity, but something's messed up with the audio and I genuinely don't know how to fix it. If you're wearing headphones, you can probably still hear it, but for those who aren't, if you could turn up the volume on your device, maybe even all the way, it really is that quiet, I'd appreciate it. Alright, thank you. Here we go. Yeah, you like that? I fucking got you! That's what you deserve for getting this far into the video without liking it. Well, you thought there wouldn't be any penalties? I'm like a taxman for engagement, don't play with me! And for anyone who already did like the video, what's up, big dog? How you doing, man? You been keeping alright? Hey, I see you got some new Jordans. Yeah, well, they look better on me. They look better on me. Anyway, Escort, it's a fun activity, I recommend it. Closing out mid-tier, we have Snatch. I always end up confusing Snatch and Escort as both activities involve prostitutes, but the truth is, these two activities couldn't be any more different. While Escort had you driving around prostitutes, Snatch has you killing their pimps and then driving around prostitutes. Innovation, people. You can't live without it. You also can't live without this, but I just kind of pulled it out of you and you didn't complain, so I'm gonna keep it. The goal of Snatch is to rescue the girls from their abusive pimps and relocate them to a new one where they will no doubt get treated with even greater respect. You gotta be mindful of how many women you're bringing back, however, otherwise the game tells you off. You need more hoes. True to life indeed. It's one of those activities that gets better the further you progress and more chaos is added to the mix, and easily secures its place at the high end of mid-tier. Now at the cream of the crop, we have insurance fraud, drug trafficking, demo derby, and mayhem. Truly all of these are interchangeable for me, and don't have a set place in this tier, because all of them are just that good. Simply put, insurance fraud sees you jumping in front of traffic to rack up an insurance claim. Incredibly simple premise, but my god if it ain't fun. There's a quiet comfort in seeing your character get catapulted down the street by a vehicle, but that's if you play it how the game intended. If you want, you can be a dirty scammer like me and break the game code in half by doing the ambulance glitch. Easily a god tier activity and one I always look forward to trying again when I replay this game. Drug trafficking is maybe the most chill out of all the activities I've mentioned so far. All you gotta do is ride shotgun with a drug dealer and make sure they aren't attacked by cops or gang members while they work. As the activity level increases, so does your notoriety, and you gain access to more weapons. And despite all the chaos ensuing around you, it really is just a laid back time, as you don't have to worry about anything other than blowing people up. You know what? Let's see what's on the radio. Oh, for fuck! Demo Derby isn't really that complex of an activity because it's exactly what the name implies. All you need to do is smash up cars and be the last man standing. There's no timer, no pressure, but I think its simplicity is what draws me to it so much. There's no quicker way to a man's heart than seeing a bunch of metal on wheels smash into each other. The way each level starts with the countdown timer also scratches an itch in my dumb monkey brain, so maybe that's a factor as well.
3, 2, 1, go! Yeah!
Mayhem is where the identity of Saints Row shines the brightest. There's no mystery, it isn't that deep, what you see is what you get. And in the case of Mayhem, what you get is the answer to the question, what happens when a rocket launcher meets a car? Yes, there's an activity in this game where all you need to do is blow things up until the timer runs out. This activity encapsulates everything this game is about, which is just dumb fun. So how can I put it anywhere else but in God tier, where it rightfully belongs? Now that I've explained each and every activity to a bunch of fucking teenagers who are never going to play this game in their life, let's move on to the story. Picking up where we left off in the prologue, the ultimate goal of the story is to wipe out all of the rival gangs and essentially take over the city. The basic mission structure is always the same. You get an intro cutscene, you do the thing, and then claim part of the city. The more of the city you claim, the more money you make. For added variety in between missions, there's also strongholds, which are like mini breaks between bigger story beats that let you decompress and unwind by blasting people in the face with a shotgun. So naturally, to begin all this carnage, you need to pick a gang you're gonna fuck with first. And the beauty of Saints Row is that when you select a mission chain, you're not constrained to it. You can bounce between gangs, or stick to taking them on one at a time. The choice is entirely up to the player. For the sake of this review, however, I'm going to be focusing on one gang at a time so we don't lose track of the plot for each gang and its characters. So, with that said, let's begin with the Los Carnales.
It's not the Los Carnales. Los means Fuck it.
Being the oldest operating gang out of the bunch, I like to go after Los Carnales first. Out with the old, in with the new kind of thing. Their main focus is drug running, and they operate out of the airport, docks, and industrial districts in the city. Prime locations for manufacturing drugs and importing illegal goods. And also blowjobs, if you're into that sort of thing. But not me, because I'm a big gay. Running the gang are the Lopez brothers, Hector and Angelo. Hector is shown to be the wiser of the two, whereas Angelo is the younger and more volatile brother. And it's made pretty obvious that these two don't often see eye to eye.
Ese viejo sucio maricón, yo le mato si le toca luz.
Angelo, you are my brother and I love you. But if you let your dick fuck things up with the Colombians, I'm gonna cut it off.
It's a small detail, but I like that the game shows us early on that this gang isn't run flawlessly, and that there are weaknesses to be exploited. There's also Victor, the gang's enforcer. He doesn't get a whole load of screen time, and his character is pretty much being the walking tank archetype.
Hey! You gotta be fucking kidding me!
But he does get to say a specific line of dialogue, which always makes me chuckle.
Let's get back to Hector.
Sí, pero primero vamos a golpear a freckle bitches.
Cool. I'm buying.
And lastly, there's Manuel. He's here in the city on behalf of the Colombian cartel to make sure operations are running smoothly, but it seems his business entails absolutely cucking Angelo out of his woman, further driving up tension between the gang members.
Señorita, a moment. If Angelo is busy, I can take you out tonight, unless you have a problem with me entertaining the lady.
No, of course not.
Good.
So who's in the seat to throw a wrench into this clearly well-oiled machine? That would be Dex. The thing that's special about Dex is that he may be the most unique member of the Saints. For one, he wears his hat like a dickhead, but more importantly, he likes to play it smart and think his plans through. You'll see with some of the other Saints later on that they're a bit more gung-ho and reckless. And admittedly, Dex's plans can devolve into that at times, but it's a bit more of a controlled chaos. And it makes the Carnales mission chain feel a little more unique to me. And while we're on the subject of missions, these ones are pretty good. There's enough variety found in them to keep them engaging, as the missions vary from blowing things up, assassinations, and even a cute little boss fight. Additionally, the story elements always keep you intrigued for what's going to happen next. There's times when you're never fully clued in on what it is Dex is planning.
Our target is the truck itself.
What do you need the truck for?
Let's just get the truck first, and then I'll tell you the rest of the plan.
And instead just take the basic instructions he gives you, only to see the payoff of his plans in a later mission. It's a satisfying angle to take narratively that the other two gangs don't really do. Generally, the progression through these missions is pretty solid too. It starts small scale, with you tactfully ruining the gang's drug businesses and taking over their production plants, to then assassinating each head gang member, and eventually stealing the Colombian financial backers for the Saints. It has a nice sense of tension rising, and the gameplay reflects that well, but it's at the final mission where my biggest complaint comes in. Not so much from a narrative standpoint, that's all fine, but do you remember earlier in the gameplay segment how I cried about this game's archaic checkpoint system? This mission right here serves as the prime example of how old and wrinkly and saggy this fucking game is. For those who don't know, the premise of the final mission is to ride shotgun in Dex's car and deal damage to the plane that Angelo is using to flee the country. Now that alone doesn't sound too bad, but what the game doesn't tell you is that there's an army of very angry gang members with RPGs dotted all over the airport with the aim and precision equal to that of a god. To make matters worse, it only takes getting hit twice by a rocket to die and fail the mission. So the only way to get through this part of the game successfully is to try your hardest to remember the layout of the maybe like 6 enemies with rockets so you can take them out preemptively. And a lot of RNG, which is just straight up not fun. Fuck this mission! And to rub salt in the wound, the mission's start point is a nice 2 to 3 minute drive away from the airport, meaning every time you die, you have to lazily drive back to the airport to pick up where you left off. And I'll give you 3 guesses as to what song kept playing on the radio for each journey I had to make. But alas, I got through it eventually. And the cutscene that plays upon completion features your player character speaking for the first time, and serves as a great example as to how well this game marries serious, intense moments with dumb comedy. So I guess it was all worth it in the end.
What are you doing here?
I was supposed to leave with Angelo.
So what's in here? Guns? Money? Some uncut shit? Shoes?
Actually, they're this season's new.
Hey, bullshit, that's last year's fall collection.
Overall, the Carnales are a decent gang. Not the best, but definitely not the worst either. For me, it wasn't the missions or story that intrigued me most, but more about what the gang represented. They're the old guard, the gang that's been on top for so long they think power and reputation alone is enough to keep them there, only for that to blow up in their face when the newer gang they underestimated rose up to take the crown. But if the Saints can topple a criminal empire like that, what does it mean for a bunch of street racers from the suburbs?
Light 'em up, boys!
We're burning Saints Row to the ground!
Operating out of the suburbs and arena districts, the Westside Rollerz are all about street racing and murder.
Listen to me! I swear to God!
Tonally, they clash quite heavily with the Carnales, as they're not a huge organised criminal empire like before, but more of a scrappy, street-level gang, giving them a separate identity and placing them on the same level as the Saints. This makes these particular missions feel less like an underdog story and more like a straight-up gang war. The gang is mainly comprised of a bunch of rich kids from the suburbs, dipping their toes into crime, but it's at the top of the food chain where things get interesting. The guy running the gang is Joseph Price, and despite looking like Mr. Clean, he's actually a dirty criminal. He relies on the financial backing of his uncle, William Sharp, who funds the gang, arranges deals overseas, and pretty much calls all the shots. There's also Donnie. Renowned for being the best mechanic in Stillwater, he fixes and tunes all of the vehicles for the gang as well as being Price's lifelong friend. Only problem being that Sharp sees Donnie as nothing more than a bumbling idiot, setting up a minor conflict between the three.
I know he's your friend, Joseph, but I will not let that Nimrod ruin my plans.
Look, Donnie may be a little flaky, but he always steps up at the end.
I certainly hope so.
So already the game's telling us there's some tension brewing within the gang, and I'm sure the Saints won't do anything to exploit that for their benefit. Right? Meet Lynn, a cool yet calculated gang member who comes up with a plan to infiltrate the Rollerz from the inside by acting as a new recruit.
I didn't think the Rollerz pimped hoes.
Best way I can think to describe her character would be taking the best parts of both Dex and Johnny Gat and mixing them together. I know I haven't explained who Johnny Gat is yet, but would you just give me a minute? God damn, I'll get to it. That isn't to say she's not unique in her own right, because while she displays traits of being both cunning and volatile, she also has a very blasé, unapologetic side to her that makes her stand out. She's also fine as hell. I feel like I didn't need to mention that, but god damn, look at those pixels. Oh. Seeing as how this gang is themed around cars and street racing, a lot of the missions are focused on driving. So whether or not you'll like them really depends if you like how cars feel to drive in this game. Personally, I think driving feels kind of okay. Like just okay. Therefore, the missions with this particular gang, at least from my perspective, are perfectly middle of the road. And this is mostly because 90% of your time will either be spent chasing after a car or chasing after a car and shooting at it. And while I understand that approaching the missions in this way is in keeping with the theme of the whole street racing thing, it doesn't change the fact that it all becomes painfully samey. Then the one time the missions do decide to switch up the gameplay loop, it lasts about as long as it takes for you to clear one building of enemies, then it's right back to the status quo of chasing after a car and shooting at it. There's nothing in these missions that stuck out to me as particularly fun or engaging, which is quite a shame, because on the narrative side of things, I actually quite like this gang. Having an informant on the inside is an interesting spin on things. It's cool to see Lynn infiltrate the gang.
Aside from macho bullshit, I haven't heard much.
Befriend Donnie.
You really know how to think outside the box, Donnie.
Don't talk to him like that.
Draw suspicion to herself.
If I didn't sell us out, and you didn't sell us out.
Lynn.
Bravo.
Get killed. We clap back, and almost get run over by a truck for our troubles. But it's just a shame that it's all bogged down with these mediocre-ass missions. But the final mission for this gang is a very special type of spit in the face. You get your revenge for Lynn by killing Joseph's uncle, and the guy who's been relatively calm up until this point has finally snapped. What's he gonna do? What mad plan is he conjured up? Will he mobilize all the remaining gang members to mount an attack on the Saints? Or maybe we'll have a sweet one-on-one fistfight with him because he's built like a brick shithouse? No. He drives around in a big truck, and all you have to do is, say it with me now, chase after it, then shoot at it. Yikes. So there you have it. I think you all understand how I feel about this one. The Westside Rollerz are easily my least favourite gang out of the bunch. Not that there aren't any redeeming qualities at all. Like I said, I enjoy pretty much all of the story elements of it, and Lynn's rough but careful attitude really made an impression on me. And you know, other reasons. But it's the gameplay content within these missions that leaves a really poor taste in my mouth. But, I don't know, maybe I'm being too critical. Here's the player saying something funny, I don't want to talk about this gang anymore.
That was a hell of an explosion. You okay, player?
I got ran over by a motherfucking truck, what you think?
Oh, quit being a bitch. My name is Benjamin motherfucking King.
Located in the downtown districts of the city, the Vice Kings represent what happens when crime turns corporate. They own the label Kingdom Come Records, and use it as a means to extort any artists who sign on. And if you try to back out, well,
discombobulate.
On top of that, they also have an underground prostitution operation and supply it by kidnapping girls off the street. Needless to say, they're not the nicest of people. The man in charge is Benjamin King, a quiet and calculated type of guy, but if you piss him off enough, he'll have no problem throwing a baseball bat at your teeth. Aside from King, you also have Tony, who is boring. He's pretty much a carbon copy of Victor from the Carnales. Strong enforcer guy who doesn't get to do a whole lot within the story, leaving his character kind of flat. Only thing worthy of note about him is that he's sleeping with Tanya. Tanya runs those lovely prostitution rings I mentioned before, and she serves as this game's femme fatale character. A femme fatale with clap and a yeast infection. Again, not an incredibly compelling character, but at least she offers a bit more screen presence. Also, her voice actress may sound familiar to you.
You know, sometimes I just want to say fuck it all and go to Hollywood, you know?
Lastly, there's Warren Williams. Officially, he's the numbers guy for the Vice Kings. Unofficially, he's an idiot. He's hot-headed, abrasive, and tends to act without thinking. Basically the exact opposite of Benjamin King. This naturally leads to situations where King has to remind him who's actually in charge here.
You were too much of a pussy then, and you're too much of a pussy now. Fuck!
You forgot who you talking to. My name is Benjamin motherfucking King. I'm the man who took my crew from being a bunch of baby gangsters in Sunnyvale to being one of the most influential and feared forces in the goddamn city. You know how I did that? I said, you know how I did that?
Mr. King?
I did it by knowing when it was time to build, when it was time to watch, and when it was time to act.
Obviously, this is the main point of conflict within the game, but the external conflict is just as interesting. You learn fairly quickly that Benjamin King and Julius know each other from back in the day, as Julius was one of the founding members of the Vice Kings alongside Benjamin. So I feel like what you need to know is the whole backstory.
What we need is for you to shut the fuck up. You feel me?
Alright, I'll spare you the history lesson, as the first game doesn't give you much more context than that anyway, but just know that there's enough there to make taking on the Vice Kings feel like a more unique personal vendetta, which is something I feel like the other two gangs were lacking in. The man appointed the task of taking on the Vice Kings is none other than Johnny Gat, one of gaming's most iconic psychopaths. Johnny serves as a pseudo-personification of all the gameplay elements you as the player have been messing around with this entire time, so there's an almost immediate kinship you feel with the guy.
I don't think I'm feeling the bat today. This is always the hardest part for me, you know? Balancing stopping power with personal enjoyment.
He's also the perfect rival for King, as their personalities couldn't be more conflicting. Where King is calm and collective, Johnny is loud and chaotic, making all the interactions they have with each other a treat to watch.
I don't want you bitching out when you see your crew.
Ain't my crew, son. That's why I'm here, remember? So how about you put your dick away, pick up your gun, and try to keep your knee away from the bullets.
Oh, you heard the cocky son of a bitch. Let's roll.
He's also dating Aisha. Yes, that Aisha. And she's currently signed and being extorted by Kingdom Come Records, so Johnny has a more personal stake in wanting to get rid of these guys too. The missions for this gang are also the most fun out of all of them by a long shot. As I mentioned before, Johnny is the physical embodiment of everything this game is about, so it's no shock that the majority of the missions have you causing chaos with a bro that just gets it. It eases you into it too. It's not like the first mission has you blowing up skyscrapers or anything. No, that's in the second mission. But it's like the developers knew that the constant carnage would get stale, so they drop in a few slower paced missions between the mayhem to make the more chaotic ones feel that much more exciting. There's something admirable about a game that designs its missions perfectly around its gameplay mechanics, and the Vice King missions do that in spades. Too often in modern video games, you're forced to sit through sections that grind the gameplay and narrative pacing to a halt, betraying the design philosophy behind its systems. And I'm happy to say that with the Vice King missions, I never had that feeling, and was just locked into a constant feedback loop of sheer fun, which will always be the most valuable element of any video game I play. Easily the best missions in the game, no question. Needless to say, the Vice Kings are the perfect embodiment of what this game does best. You've got the chaos, the grounded tone, and the humor.
I'm gonna skull fuck that bitch.
Hope you don't mind hepatitis.
What?
And on top of that, you're doing it all alongside a guy who basically feels like the player if he held a mirror up to himself. I really don't have anything negative to say about this gang, only that I wish there was more of it. But as you know, all good things have to come to an end, and what better place to wrap things up than right here.
This is Chief Monroe. If you want Julius back, listen to what I've got to say. There's a mayoral campaign going on, and I want one of the candidates taken off the ballot. Don't disappoint me, or you'll find Julius's body floating in the river tomorrow.
Johnny, we're not blowing up City Hall.
I'm just saying. It would solve a lot of problems.
In a subversion of expectations, the game doesn't end with you reveling in the city you just took over, but rather having to deal with the fallout of everything you did to get there. On one hand, I enjoy these missions because they serve as a reminder that all of your actions have consequences. But on the other hand, they do feel like a very last-minute attempt at wrapping things up quickly because the devs didn't know how to conclude this story properly. There's 3 epilogue missions in total, and they all revolve around people you've never met in the entire game. Police Chief Monroe, mayoral candidate Marshall Winslow, and Alderman Hughes. To the game's credit, it doesn't act as if these people didn't exist until now, because you can hear them being talked about on the radio when driving around. But in truth, they never felt like they had any bearing on what you were doing throughout the story, and more so felt like a bit of subtle world building in the background. So when the game suddenly pivots to these guys being super important, you'd be forgiven for going,
I'm Richard Hughes.
fucking fucking who? It's a pretty big ask of the player to suddenly care about who these people are and what they're doing, when they had almost zero build-up or direct input with the story until right now. Could you honestly say that you cared about the political climate of Stillwater when you were slingshotting yourself between traffic? But on the flip side, if you choose not to do the epilogue missions, the end of the game is you becoming Julius's right hand and then he gets arrested. That's literally it. So it's kind of a catch-22 situation. The epilogue works for closure, but the closure is very awkward. The missions themselves aren't too bad from a gameplay perspective. If anything, they're just a little basic. The first mission has you assassinate mayoral candidate Marshall Winslow under the order of Chief Monroe, who's holding Julius hostage. You steal his campaign bus, park it on the train tracks, and then immediately die to this game's janky ways. In Mission 2, you and the gang are immediately annoyed at being in Chief Monroe's pocket, so you go to assassinate him at the funeral procession of the guy you just killed. In classic Saints Row fashion, the simple assassination gets botched and you end up just shooting rockets at all the cars present, which is admittedly pretty funny. This all culminates to a meeting on the yacht with Alderman Hughes, where he reveals that he was the one who ordered the assassination on Winslow so he could easily win the election. He also reveals that he plans to kill you after your meeting to fully dismantle gang activity in Stillwater and win the public's favor. And before you can think too hard about any of this and realize how much you just don't care about anything that's happening, the yacht blows up and everybody dies. The game also does a weird thing where it tries to set up a mystery about who was responsible for the explosion by showing you all the characters you've wronged over the course of the story, but like, it was clearly Julius, right? He's supposed to be being held hostage by the guy you're currently talking to, but clearly he isn't. I mean, look, he's right there. So my question to the developers is, why the fuck did you bother doing the whole mystery whodunit thing if you're gonna answer that question in the same cutscene? Was it purely done to build suspense for this moment alone? I don't know, man. This epilogue is fucking weird. There's also the big revelation that Troy, remember Troy? Iconic Troy?
Agent Norman Jaden, FBI?
Well, he was an undercover cop the whole time. Now, don't get me wrong. I would normally be shocked by this revelation, but I'm still dealing with the whiplash of seeing my character get incinerated before my very eyes. I feel like everything in this epilogue was set up to make everyone playing it pull the fattest of soy faces, but all they got out of me was... Anyway, that's the story of Saints Row. Your character is dead, and everything you did leading up to this moment was all for nothing. Bit of a shot to the heart, I have to say, but the saying, "it's the journey that counts, not the destination," comes to mind when applied to this game. It's no secret that the gold of this game's story is found in the gang takeover aspect, and watching each of your rivals get increasingly frustrated at the Saints as you keep messing with them is really satisfying. It's just a shame that the epilogue feels more like a sprint to the finish rather than a well-made conclusion. There's very little depth or philosophy to be found in the story of Saints Row.
Nigga, you should buckle your seatbelt.
And to be blunt, it's not really that interesting of a story at all. It's part of the reason why this video doesn't go into a super deep breakdown of every mission for each gang. Partly because I want you to experience that for yourself, and partly because, if I'm being real, it's more or less the same shit each time. You keep poking the gang with a stick until they crash out and slip up, and then you kill them. But the story of this game is never what drew me to it in the first place. Instead, what I always found interesting about Saints Row is how it manages to perfectly strike that tonal balance of being just stupid enough to remind you that you're playing a video game, and just sincere enough to keep you grounded in this world and care about its characters.
I swear to God!
Call this game a shallow GTA clone all you want, but you can't deny the fact that it worked hard to build its own identity. While GTA pioneered deep, impactful stories centered around crime, Saints Row pioneered the fantasy of truly being able to do whatever you want in a video game without drowning the experience in realism, but also not forgetting that grounding your story can help prop up the more crazy ideas you might have. It serves as a reminder that a game's value shouldn't always be placed in how nuanced the story can get, but instead focusing on how much fun the player can have with the gameplay while experiencing it, which makes me just as depressed when I think about the current state of these games. Modern Saints Row truly is a shell of its former self, and if the stars align and we ever get a new installment in this franchise, I hope they look to the roots of this series for inspiration, because beneath all of the dumb jokes and chaos, this game understood something the newer games forgot. If you want your audience to buy in and care about the insanity, then the world and its characters have to feel real, and I truly believe that none of the other games pulled that off more cleanly than the original.
There's something to be said about the classics.
Would you look at that? You made it to the end of the video. You listened to a guy with no qualifications on the subject yap about a video game for half an hour, and what did you learn? That's right, you're mentally deficient. But don't feel too bad, I'm right there with you. We can sit on a hillside in our straitjackets and howl at the moon together. If you enjoyed what you watched and feel like contributing further to your mental decline, consider supporting me on Patreon. It's new, crudely designed, and lacking in rewards. How's that for a sales pitch? Joking aside, I plan to add more to give back to you guys once I gain steadier footing on this channel, but if you feel like helping a brother out in the meantime and have the income to spend, I'd appreciate it greatly. Alright, that's enough talking out of me. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you guys again very soon.